The Passionate Shepherd to His Love is a very famous poem written by Christopher Marlow. The Nymph's reply to the shepherd is an equally famous poem that records the woman's response to his proposal. This video is a discussion of these two poems. We'll start with The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. This poem is a pastoral poem. Pastoral in the sense that it refers to the idealized representation of rural life and landscapes, often associated with shepherding. Let's look at the whole poem. From this view, you can see that it is comprised of 6 four-line stanzas. A quick look at the rhyme tells us that each quatrain follows an AABB rhyme scheme, and a quick scan tells us that the lines are written in iambic tetrameter. So here's the first stanza. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove, that valleys, groves, hills and fields, woods or steepy mountain yields. Do you hear the musical, sound-like quality that the rhyme, rhythm, and meter create? Together these reinforce the poem's romantic tone and pastoral setting. The poem opens with the shepherd's invitation, come live with me and be my love. It sets up the central premise. A shepherd filled with passion is suggesting to a young woman that they marry, and he promises this arrangement will lead to many pleasures that will be extracted from the natural environment. So what are these pleasures? They are articulated in the next 5 stanzas. And we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks, by shallow rivers, to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses, and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers, and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw with ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. So what do you think of that list? Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? The sun is out and the big sitting rocks are warm. There's flocks of sheep on green pastures. The birds are singing songs to the rivers. There's flowers everywhere, and the shepherd's going to make things from all those flowers. Beds and clothes, to be specific. Oh, and they'll make clothes from the wool which comes off the sheep. It comes off them cleaned and combed. I've had sheep, and that's not how it is. But anyway, the final stanza returns to the invitation. The shepherd's swains shall dance and sing, for thy delight each May morning. And if these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. This circular structure emphasizes the point of the whole thing, to persuade her to marry him. We've no doubt noticed some key ideas in this poem. It idealizes lots of things, including love, and the natural world as well, and rural life, particularly the life of the shepherd. So it's clearly pastoral. Let's just dig in a little deeper here though. Marlow's poem exemplifies the pastoral tradition, but it may also subtly subvert it. I think it gently ridicules what we might call romantic idealism. Pretty much everyone back in Marlow's day knew about rural life and nature. They lived so much closer to it than we do today. I doubt that Marlow doesn't know that the sentiments of this poem are not very realistic. So I think this poem is likely shining a light on the silliness of romantic idealism. Another thing, the shepherd promises natural pleasures, but also some handmade delights. Back in the Elizabethan literary period, there was a tension between nature and what people back then called artifice. That's man-made things. Our word for artificial comes from it. People in Marlow's day had a different view than we do. For them, artificial didn't have a negative connotation. Artifice was thought to be superior to nature. The shepherd's promises demonstrate how artifice can enhance and complement natural beauty. No wonder this poem is so popular. It resonates because don't we all have a desire to be loved? And possibly live a simpler existence when we can enjoy the pleasures of life? But you've got to wonder how the woman might respond to such a proposal. Well, we don't have to wonder. Sir Walter Raleigh wrote a poem with the same structural elements as Marlow's, and it's called The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd. Raleigh's use of the parallel structure to Marlow's poem allows for a point-by-point refutation of the shepherd's promises. This technique emphasizes the gap between fantasy and reality, and perhaps serves as a commentary on the dangers of unrealistic expectations in love and life. Here are the first lines of the nymph's reply. If all the world and love were young, and truth in every shepherd's tongue, these pretty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy love. The nymph begins by setting up a hypothetical scenario suggesting that if the world and love were eternally young, and shepherds were always truthful, she might be moved by the shepherd's promises. But you can hear her skepticism, right? She doubts the shepherd's proposals come at all close to reality. She continues, Time drives the flocks from field to fold, when rivers rage and rocks grow cold, and Philomel becometh dumb, the rest complains of cares to come. The flowerets do fade in wanton fields, to wayward winter reckoning yields. A honey tongue and heart of gall is fancy's spring, but sorrow's fall. Thy gowns, thy shoes, thy beds of roses, thy cap, thy kirtle, and thy posies, soon break, soon wither, soon forgotten, in folly ripe, in reason rotten. Thy belt of straw and ivy buds, the coral clasps and amber studs, all these in me no means can move, to come to thee and be thy love. So here's what she thinks. Seasons change, and sometimes weather isn't very nice. Them sittin' rocks is cold to your bum. Birds fly south, and the ones that don't suck at singing. Beauty and pleasures are all transient. Flowers fade and fields don't stay green. The metaphor of a honeyed tongue and a heart of gall in stanza 3 suggests that sweet words often mask bitter realities. In stanza 4, she argues that the gowns and the shoes and the beds of roses are foolish and irrational. Can you imagine what a bed of rose petals would be like when you wake up in the morning after a night of thrashing about? The last stanza is a little wistful. It's too bad that reality is as it is. But could youth last, and love still breed? Had joys no date, nor age no need? Then these delights my mind might move, to live with thee, and be thy love. She concedes that if the shepherd's fantasies could be real, she'd be interested. But they aren't, so she isn't. Raleigh's poem serves as a realistic counterpoint to Marlow's idealized vision of love and life. While Marlow's shepherd promises eternal spring and unchanging beauty, Raleigh's nymph introduces the harsh realities of time and aging and impermanence. What's cool about these poems taken together is that they show that to be human means to be caught in between the two, the ideals and the realities. Beauty and pleasure and youth don't last. The wheel of fortune keeps turning. Bad stuff happens. You get older and then you die. It's the human condition, but we want it not to be the human condition, don't we? I don't think the shepherd is as much of a flake as a lot of people think he is. I think he is a part of all of us, and it's quite natural for him to wish that his promises were possible. But this does not make me wistful. Not completely. I take this desire for fair weather as a really good thing, and that's because it reminds me of a quote from C.S. Lewis. In Mere Christianity, he says this: "Creatures are not born with desires unless satisfaction for those desires exists. A baby feels hunger. Well, there is such a thing as food. A duckling wants to swim. Well, there is such a thing as water. Men feel sexual desire. Well, there is such a thing as sex. If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. If none of my earthly pleasures satisfy it, that does not prove that the universe is a fraud. Probably earthly pleasures were never meant to satisfy it, but only to arouse it, to suggest the real thing. If that is so, I must take care on the one hand to never despise or be unthankful for these earthly blessings, and on the other, never to mistake them for something else of which they are only a kind of copy or echo or mirage. I must keep alive in myself the desire for my true country, which I shall not find until after death. I must never let it get snowed under or turned aside. I must make it the main object of life to press on to that other country and to help others do the same." I don't think that Lewis intended this to be an apologetic argument. I take it as yet another little thing about our experiences in this life that point to the kingdom of God, if you have the eyes to see them. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.